pues aprender y pues eso le está sirviendo también para él.
Qué bien, y la felicito por su hijo. Gracias. Gracias. Thank you. No, I'd love if she. Yeah. Bring her over here. Bring her over here. Yeah, bring her. Hi, how are you? Ooh, that was when Mary Ellen, yes, thank you.
Hello,
I'm doing interviews right now. Yeah. Okay. Line her up.
I don't know. I'm just oh, okay.
Ms. Perez, we're doing one-on-one interviews.
There.
People that weren't on the live stream, we did some one-on-one interviews during dead time, but they created dead time. When there's nothing else happening.
Yeah.
I'm glad you met the president of Our Lady of the Lake.
Yes.
She's a sharp lady.
I've got to go give her my card in just a minute.
Okay. Marisa Perez, you are a State Board of Education member, right? How long have you been on the State Board?
So I was elected in the fall of 2012 and officially started in my role in January of 2013.
Okay. And your presentation at the conference today was about?
I was speaking specifically on ESSA and how it pertains to family engagement and empowerment.
So what are the key points about family engagement that you stressed?
So number one, we really need to take a different approach at family engagement. It's not about involvement anymore, right? We don't want to be superficial with how we're partnering with our parents now. Bringing them in to make copies in a classroom or for the school is great, but we want to make sure that we're dialoguing with them about policy decisions, about program planning, those sorts of things. And that is the difference between No Child Left Behind and ESSA. We're in a new phase of what parent engagement looks like.
And so what are, in terms of the details, as you look at family leadership in education, influencing policy and practice, what are some things that came out in your session that you elaborated on?
Well, so we spoke specifically about what's happening here in Texas, and it seems that in talking to the individuals that were in the session, everybody shares the same challenges. Sometimes schools are not open settings for families to come in. They're not inviting. They're not welcoming. And so, how do we change that mindset at the campus level to make sure that parents are welcomed first and foremost, and then really engaging them in conversations about making decisions that are best for their own children. We talked about how it doesn't matter the level of education, the diploma. Every parent comes to the conversation with some sort of education. It doesn't take a diploma to mean that you're educated. And that's key, right? Because parents are the very first educators in a child's life. And so making sure that we bring them into the conversation is absolutely vital. And that was kind of the resounding message throughout the time that we were speaking.
That's good. In terms of family engagement, what at the state level do you think the agency is going to be doing to support that?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the initiatives that the State Board of Education has undertaken over the last year is the creation of our long-range plan for public education, which is focusing on four big factors, and one of which is family engagement and empowerment. And through that conversation, we're talking to stakeholders from across the state. We've had 11 community conversations. San Antonio hosted the largest one in the state. We had about 146 people attend. And what we're doing is talking to everybody from superintendent down to the student about what they hope to see in trends in parent engagement. And that conversation evolved into, again, creating policy together, remembering that parents are leaders and that they can be the champions when you engage them, or, they can be the largest critics when you don't. And so it's really, really important. But again, the State Board of Education is really supporting what our long-range plan looks like, with a huge focus on intentionally engaging our parents when it comes to policy decisions.
This is quite connecting to the theme that is family leadership of this particular institute. We thank you for participation and thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Deja tu bolsita a un lado. Vénganse los dos. Ok. Ándale, arréglate bien. ¿Te quieres quitar la chaqueta o así? Quítate, no está mejor sin la chaqueta. Ok, va a ser en inglés. Your name, please,
Hilda Villegas.
and who do you represent today?
I'm here representing Familias Unidas del Chamizal. It's a
And what is Familias Unidas de Chamizal all about?
we are a community organization of parents, but also families in the barrio Chamizal, and we are working together to work on 4 areas of need, which is education, the environmental health, housing, and our community center.
Now we're working together in education. What are your biggest challenges in education in your barrios and your neighborhoods right now?
I feel that it's the same as in any other that I've seen low-income communities is the just getting like that communication gap between the actual families and whatever else is happening within the city and how it's affecting our communities. In terms of education, that's something that information that's being produced, it's not getting to the communities, and if it does get to the communities, it's not understandable. It's really hard for us to interpret what that means to us.
What are your challenges in terms of your specific schools in relationship to the school district?
Well, right now there really isn't a relationship between the parents and the school districts. I feel that they don't consider us as partners in education, that we might not have anything to contribute. And it's because of that misunderstanding that if they take the time to communicate with us, that we won't have anything valuable to say or to have to contribute.
In your work with the families that you work directly with in your neighborhoods, in your barrios, what are their dreams and visions for their children?
I think that their visions, it's just, or the way we evaluate those dreams is just like we want them to graduate, or we want them to at least just make it to get their diploma, but then beyond that, we really don't understand how complex and how important it is within us, or what it entails to do that, you know?
How important is an organization like yours, an independent advocacy group, to the future of those neighborhoods?
It's extremely important because we as a community of parents, I think we understand both worlds. I think that teachers might have their perspective how they deal with the students, but since there is no real in relationship or communication, that us as a community organization, we're trying to do that. We're trying for the parents to have a relationship with the schools, to have a relationship with the students, and for us to be able to actually understand, like to bring that information, and for us to be able to be inclusive of that process. It's extremely important, especially in community like ours.
Let me ask you, in terms of the families that you work directly with, and you work with a lot of families, how do you see leadership emerging among those families?
I think that we see it, it's we're gradually getting there. They're still very much, they feel that the same way that they don't have anything to contribute, that they are not knowledgeable enough because of the experience they have. So I feel that us just being able to consider them important, and us being part of that struggle, and that we do have a lot to say, and creating that space, their confidence, like confidence as leaders and parents, it's growing, and it's we've seen it gradually. They're taking leadership, they're actually speaking, but not just complaining. Like at the beginning we say, well, we just complain. They actually do feel that they are contributing. Their analysis has developed. It's not just complaints now, but actually we are developing certain plans that we can propose.
How do you feel about the charter school movement moving into your barrios?
That's very scary right now. I think that we are analyzing the charter school ideas as there are putting our public schools in danger in the funding, but we also have what we're dealing with is in public school charter schools, that right now we're facing that, but we don't know how to interpret that. So we don't know if it's something to embrace it or or to consider it also as damaging as the outside charter schools, and that's something that's something that we need to evaluate. That we're not there yet.
In terms of your schools, I know state funding is controlled at the state level, but what do you think about the funding of this particular schools you're most concerned about?
Well, that's I just came out from a workshop that we're trying to understand the funding at the state level, that the state is doing a lot of, especially because of Texas, cutting a lot of those resources. But then at our local level, at the district level, we also see a lot of disparities within the schools, and that concerns me too. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, because there's not really a lot of talk, well, at least in El Paso, about that. There's like talk about the state funding and the cuts and all that, but within the district, there really isn't any discussion. And when we bring it up that there's disparities, then it's like, they're like, no, well, we're not going to deal with that, well, because we're dealing with the state. So for me, it's something, it's a battle that we have to bring up. We have to make that battle and to say, you know what, not just within the state and within the districts, but also within the schools within the district, that we're facing those inequalities.
So we have many challenges. Congratulations for the Familias de Chamizal and for your work, Hilda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
See that couple going over there? Have her right now come over here. Right now? Yeah. One more interview. Is that okay? It's going to be 2 minutes.
Ramito's joining me. It'll be a joint. I told her for her to do it. Yes. What? Can you give me a rundown of the questions you're going to be asking so I can be a little bit more prepared?
What do you do and how is the coalition right now supporting family engagement, the work we're doing? That's all.
You sure you don't want to speak on behalf of the coalition?
You speak on behalf.
Okay. Do I have to say Capital One?
No. Just say
Northside Education Coalition. Okay.
Good afternoon. It's afternoon. Your name and who you do you represent at this conference?
Of course. My name is Angie Razzo. I work with Mi Familia Vota. Mi Familia Vota is part of the Northside Education Coalition that's been starting education cafes in Houston.
And what is the coalition about?
The coalition is really to decide and to look within the Northside community and see what are the goals that we have for the Northside education system, part of that being early education, community partnerships, after school programs, and then from there on deciding what programs and what initiatives we can bring to the community through the coalition.
So you're part of the largest school district in Texas, one of the largest, Houston. Why is that area of interest, that Northside area of interest to your coalition?
Of course. So the Northside area has a lot of community organizations, but sometimes we maybe don't have parent engagement, or we are not seeing the best education system as a whole. So identifying those challenges that we face through our education system and really focusing on the Northside community and seeing the strengths that the people have, the students have, and allowing them to be empowered and to share our resources and our knowledge with them so they can be advocates for their community and their school system.
Thank you. And what is your vision for the Education Cafe? What would you like it to become?
Really, we really want to see parents and students, through the Education Cafe, to be empowered and to say, hey, we want change in our community, and we're going to be the leaders in this. That they're not waiting for someone to come and make the change for them, but that they understand the capacity they have to take ownership of their community and to be able to be strong advocates for their children, for their grandchildren, for the students of their area.
And for Mi Familia Vota, I'm glad you're part of it. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much, Aurelio. Happy to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Welcome back to the general session. Bienvenidos todos otra vez a la sesión general que les vamos a dar clausura a esta conferencia. We're going to have about 45 minutes of what we're calling a press briefing. I don't know if there's any press here, but we still have the briefing. Before I start, I want to remind you that if you want to be eligible for the door prizes, you had to have left your card. Si quieren un premio, tienen que estar en el concurso para premio, tienen que dejar su tarjetita allá en el cuarto donde estaban las exposiciones. Y después de esta sesión va a haber una lista con los nombres de los que ganaron un premio. So those that win a prize, you go to that room after we're through here and you'll see if you got a prize or not. Okay. There will be more pictures taken out in the garden when this session is over. Si quieren tener una foto de grupo, se van al jardín y les vamos a tomar foto y va a estar en el internet, so pueden ustedes hallar copia de esa fotografía. In closing our 20th annual Semana del Niño, we decided we wanted to have a keynote speaker who through her life work and through her children has been a model. And to do that, we also wanted to honor our president and CEO, Dr. Maria Cuca Robledo Montesel, our president and CEO for over 25 years. Tiene más de 25 años de ser la presidenta de nuestra organización y ella va a presentar a la que va a dar la plática principal en la conferencia. Cuca.
Buenas tardes. Welcome to each of you. Bienvenidos a todos y a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias, Aurelio. Aurelio y yo tenemos más de 40 años de trabajar juntos. Él ya estaba viejón, pero yo tenía 10 años cuando empezamos a trabajar juntos. Durante esos 40 años que hemos trabajado juntos en IDRA, Aurelio ha hecho muchísimo trabajo. His work, Aurelio Montemayor's work, has focused on developing leaders and on creating linkages across generations, across communities, and across schools. All of us are very grateful for you, Aurelio Manuel Montemayor. Gracias por convocarnos este día para celebrar 20 años de este instituto. Quizás ya sepan que el IDRA Parent Institute celebra 20 años en este día y reunimos padres y madres de familia, jóvenes y educadores en pro de escuelas de alta calidad, no para algunos niños, sino para todo niño, para todas criaturas. Welcome also to Becky Barrera of the National Latino Children's Institute. You'll hear from her in a bit. She is here as the steward for el Día de los Niños, que se celebra en los Estados Unidos el 30 de abril de cada año. I'd like to now introduce our keynote speaker, nuestra oradora principal, María del Rosario Castro. Rosie Castro has been called a political matriarch by the San Antonio Express News and a firebrand by the New York Times. Rosie's mother, Doña Victoria, came from Mexico with a 4th grade education. ¿Te pongo este acá? Yeah. Rosie's mother, Doña Victoria, came from Mexico with a 4th grade education. She cleaned houses to earn a living, and she raised a daughter here with us today, a daughter of uncommon courage and action. In turn, Rosie raised two sons, Congressman Joaquin Castro and the Honorable Julian Castro, whose political life and accomplishments are based on Rosie's fundamental teaching: stand up for our values. As an activist, an organizer, a political candidate, and an educator, Rosie Castro saw injustice and discrimination and stood up in word and in deed. She worked and works to make a difference. Rosie's courage and strength inspire women and men of all ages to study, prepare themselves, and get involved in the community and in politics. For what? To create a better world, a fairer world. Last year on Mother's Day, Our Lady of the Lake University awarded Rosie Castro an honorary doctorate to mark a life dedicated to creating opportunities for Latinos. Dr. Diane Milvey, president of Our Lady of the Lake, is here today. Welcome, Diane, and thank you for joining us. Así que gracias, María del Rosario Castro, por tu ejemplo, tu dedicación y tu trabajo. Sabemos que a Rosie le encanta la poesía, así que termino con un cachito de una poesía de Violeta Parra. El poema se llama Gracias a la vida y es uno de los favoritos de Rosie, sobre todo en estos días de Pascua. Y dice así: gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la risa y me ha dado el llanto. Así yo distingo dicha de quebranto, los dos materiales que forman mi canto. Y el canto de ustedes, que es mi mismo canto, y el canto de todos, que es mi propio canto. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Yo agregaría gracias a la vida que nos ha dado a Rosie Castro, y les presento a nuestra muy querida y única Rosie Castro.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
It is so wonderful to see all of you here. And I am reminded that it wasn't that long ago, when my children were younger, that I was sitting where you are, trying to learn everything that I could to make sure that my children had the best opportunities to learn and the best opportunities to be able to create a better life. I'm going to take a little personal privilege right now, because I know Cuca didn't want people talking about her. But I have to say that someone told me, and I hadn't thought about it, but someone told me not too long ago, this will be Cuca's last Parent Institute as the head of IDRA, because I'm sure we'll see her again. We'll see her back. But in thinking about that, I thought about the very difficulty of losing a leader of Cuca's quality. It is difficult, I think, to find in one person all the kinds of skills and abilities and aptitudes and knowledge and all of that that you find in Cuca. For most of you know what a lot of that is. But just think about it, in one person who's a writer, who's an orator, who's a researcher, who's a teacher, who develops curriculum, who goes and talks to the legislature and has staff that give testimony at hearings and has done that herself, both on a national and state level. That's a real, and there's so much more, not to mention all the programs that IDRA under Cuca's leadership has started, and the impact that those programs have had on valued youth, on parents, on the testimony, on bilingual education, on so many multilingual education. And then you look at the research, and you look at the workshops she's done and produced for teachers, for administrators, for parents, and for students. You look at this vast amount of work, and you can't believe that it's one person that has been able to provide all that leadership. And I've got to say one last thing about that. I mean, there's so much that I could say about Kuka, but let me also say, it is not easy for a leader to assemble the outstanding amount of people that work for IDRA. Years ago, when I thought about, I was thinking about, well, how many PhD folks do we have in San Antonio? Because whenever you run in higher ed, and people would say, well, we can't have a president, or we can't have a chancellor, or we can't have this or that, because there's not enough PhDs. So one day I started thinking, how many PhDs, that you could find the largest amount of PhDs, I think, at IDRA. And even if, the amazing thing about that is, I think people come because they're attracted to working for a person who is excellent and demands excellence. So along with Kuka, Aurelio, whom I've known for many, many years, and all the other people that work at IDRA, I want to thank you for all the hard work that shows up today and that will continue to showing up. It's going to be difficult to find someone to step into Kuka's shoes, but I know that her spirit will always be there, and I think her too, hopefully we'll always have her back. But I want to say thank you, Kuka, for all the years of service that you've given this community. We appreciate it. There's just really three things that I want to say, because I'm going to try to keep it short. That's very hard for me. I used to be a trainer, so I can do hours, so you need to say it, okay? One, what you're doing today, like I started out saying, is so important because it's part of lifelong learning. And that is something that as your kids see you doing that, they think, one, education is important. Education never stops, and education is transformative. So always, when you get home from any kind of, whether it's a community center class, a college class, an IDRA, any kind of class, be sure you're talking to your kids about it. Have them ask you questions. What did you do? What did you learn? Always communicate with your kids about that learning, because that's the kind of thing that will get them thinking about how exciting it is to learn. And that's what you want. You want to make sure that our kids believe in lifelong learning, because the future that is upon us is going to rely heavily on that ability to learn all our lives and to adjust, to be flexible, to be able to grasp something new. Have any of you seen that commercial that they're showing recently about this woman who, she had this great job? I just started seeing it. I'm sure it'll be over and over again. She has this great job, and then the company closes. And she's looking for jobs, and there's no jobs. And so what does she do? She thinks about it, and she goes to an IT school, to a school that teaches IT, information technology. And she decides she's reinventing herself. And that's very important. Throughout our lives, there are times that we need to reinvent ourselves. So if you teach your kids now to always be on the lookout for learning opportunities, they will do very well. And that's one of the things I tried to teach my kids all the time, was to look for those opportunities. Another thing that I felt very strongly about, besides communicating and make sure that the kids will always communicate to you about whatever's going on in their lives. And today we got to see some of the workshops briefly, but they're great workshops. And I know that as parents, we're concerned about issues like bullying. We're concerned about the quality of education of our kids. And so I think it's very important that we teach our kids, and hopefully later you'll see Becky's Milagros. We teach our kids early on in their life to set goals and to think about goals. One of the goals in the Milagros was to change the world. That's great. I mean, the world needs changing right now. Things are tough. But you also then develop, how would you change the world? You ask your student, you ask someone who has stated a goal, how would you do that? What are the steps? Does it cost money? Does it cost time? But if you develop that ability in your kids to set goals now and to watch you set goals, you're going to have a child who's always thinking ahead, who's always planning, who's always ready for those opportunities. So my kids used to laugh at me because I would talk to them about things like balance and setting goals. Oh, ha, 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 ha. But you know what? Those kids, they pretend they don't hear anything you're saying. I don't know if you have experienced that, but especially when they're teenagers, it's like they're in, my 9-year-old granddaughter, she's into her tablet. Hi, Mita. Yeah. And you know, it doesn't matter what you're saying to her because she's into her tablet. But you think they're not listening. They're listening to everything that you say and that you do. And so the best teacher, you were their first teacher, but you're their always teacher. And you will be their best teacher if you're able to always be supportive, always help them and guide them in setting goals, making plans, and that kind of thing. Finally, the last thing I want to say is that education is transformative. Learning changes your life, not just your income, but your spirituality, your health, your every aspect of your life can be changed by education. Just think back if you can remember something that you didn't know before that you learned at a class or somewhere else. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. And so you are transformed intellectually and in many other ways when you're learning. And that's why, again, as a lifelong learner and teaching kids to be a lifelong learner, you really help them to be ready for the future. Today, kids need to know through education that there is an entire world of possibilities. People always say, oh, you can do anything. Not all our kids believe that because of the things they run into sometimes in school, what they run into sometimes in the neighborhood or in other places. But if you teach them that education is the way, that education can change lives, then they will look for opportunities. And I believe that through education, and my family believes this strongly, each one of us, my sons, my daughter-in-laws, all of us are committed to education, not just for the family, but for all people. Because when you lack that education, that opportunity for education, then your life doesn't quite turn out the way that you would like. My mother was pulled out at 3rd grade from school. She basically knew Spanish, but despite that, she taught herself to speak English and Spanish and to read and write it. She had a bunch of books at home that she liked to read, mostly mystery books, large print, but she read all the time. And my sons like to say, you know, right now as we have this debate about immigrants and all that, by the way policymakers look at my mother, at his grandmother, she wouldn't have been one of those people that get let in for these quotas of immigration. Because she never owned a house, she never had a car, she didn't learn how to drive. Lots of things she didn't learn. But what she did learn, that she had to make sure that I understood there was no other way but you're going to college. So I hope that, and she made sure, again, not only by saying things, but by living a life surrounded by books, surrounded by curiosity. My godmother once told me that her dream had been, my mother's dream, had been to be a journalist and see her name in lights. She never got to do that, but my sons have done it for her. You being here today is a gift that you give not only to yourself, but to your children. Again, because you're here, they understand how much education will mean. You give your children, as advocates, you make sure that no one can do to them anything that is not respectful. And if anybody tries, you're going to organize, you're going to go to the school board, you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that no one continues that way. I think one of the things we give our children is the ability to dream. And that's what the Milagros look at too, that ability to dream. And that's an important ability. You don't want to ever see a child that has no dream. If you've ever seen that, it's a very difficult thing. And so I believe that all of us are dreamers. And I hope that your dreams for your children and for yourself will continue to be supported by organizations like IDRA and by others who are resources for our community. Thank you, good luck, and if our family can ever do anything for you, please let us know.
La mamá de los cuates. Thank you very much, Rosie. That was really good. One of the themes today, there's two themes. One is family leadership and education. Hay dos temas, el liderazgo de familias en educación y el segundo, que pronto va a ser el Día de los Niños. So, para animar esa celebración, to support the celebration of the Day of our Children, we have some of the students from the Coca-Cola Valley Youth Program in South San Antonio that have some messages to us as adults. I think it's Samantha? No, right. Samantha, Nicole, and Alexander. So, Samantha, would you bring your message up front? Nicole. I don't know who's who. Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Nicole from South San Antonio, and we are tutors from Kendrick Elementary. Our messages are for community members, business people, and educators. Communication is the key.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I have a message for all mothers and my mother. Spend more time with your daughter.
My name is Alexander Ortega, and my message is to all adults, and especially to my mother. Love is kind. Show me love and be proud of me. That is the message.
Okay, thanks, Elsie. So they're going to stay on the stage with us. There are many messages we need to listen to from our young people, as we're hearing them from other parts of the country. And as part of our event and our celebration, Kuka mentioned that she had a special connection to Our Lady Lake University. We have their president here, Dr. Diane Milvey. Would you please join us?
Buenas tardes. My apologies to those of you who speak only Spanish. It is a poverty that a person with a doctoral degree, it is a poverty that a person that leads a university is not bilingual. It's a poverty that a person of my stature should have grown up in a community where culture was not valued to a point that I stand before you can only speak English. So my apologies to you that may struggle to interpret my words today. Talking about the need for public policy and advocacy with our public figures to promote education for every child in the United States. And there is no doubt at all. The jury's been in, the jury's been out, and we all know that education is the key to leading a successful life. Now, we used to say that education was the key to leading a successful life in America, but the fact of the matter is it is the key worldwide. And so I want to talk with you today and talk with you about the idea of collaboration, right? And it's a word we hear every place we go. And in fact, the mothers and the fathers in this room today are here because of this collaborative effort. But we tend to think that collaboration is interactional, a discussion between you and me. And I'd like to propose that collaboration is circular. And it's not a stagnant circular so that you keep coming back to the same place, but it's circular in the fact that you keep moving society forward. And so yes, the route to education, a free, appropriate education that leads to success in our country, is the right of every individual, and that starts with public policy. But there's some other things that come into play to keep that circle not just going around and around, but to keep that circle moving us forward more like a wheel that's taking us someplace. And the first is another C after collaboration is conviction. And that conviction is that every child can learn. Every child can learn. No exceptions. No exceptions. And following that is a commitment. Once we believe at our cores as a society that every child can learn, once we have that conviction, then we must develop the commitment that this can only be realized if all the community comes together, no exceptions, no excuses. Every child can learn, and there is no excuse for why a child is not learning and accessing education to its fullest potential. It is not an excuse with what a child is born with. It is not an excuse where a child is born. It is not an excuse for the economic ability of their parent. A child can't be too poor to learn. A child can't be too rich to learn. Every child can learn, and we must have that conviction. Learning is not dictated by the color of one's skin, the language that a child uses, or the child's birthright. And in order to bring this conviction and this commitment together, no exceptions, no excuses, we need the collaboration of the entire community. So I once learned that public policy, our lawmakers will never be at the front of the parade. They wait for the citizens to be at the front of the parade, and it looks like when that parade is going, they'll get in the middle. But it's the community that has to lead the parade, and I thank you all for being here today. And I want to give you just one example of this collaboration that I'm talking about. It can be found in the Raise Your Hand Texas Foundation that was started and funded by HEB's Charles Butt. He put this year $50 million to be spent over 10 years by 10 institutions to improve education. And Our Lady of the Lake University, OLU, is one of those 10 institutions. We are working with IDRA, we're working with community partners all around the city to put our faculty, our student teachers in the classrooms, embed them right in the classrooms of SAISD and other school districts, and particularly in Rodriguez Elementary School right across the street from the university in the heart of the West Side. This shows a remarkable commitment. It shows a remarkable commitment, conviction on the part of a corporate entity, a nonprofit entity, a university, and a public school system, using the best practices developed by organizations and nonprofits across the city, and especially like IDRA. This commitment and conviction will only take the wheel around the circle unless something else happens. Because if you think about what I said, this is a remarkable opportunity with remarkable funding that's going to affect remarkable numbers of teachers as we prepare the next teachers for the next generation. But it's only going to circle and circle if we don't bring that back to public policy and say it's worked here, now fund it, and bring it to the next school system. Bring it down to the RGV. Bring it down to Laredo. Bring it over to El Paso. Bring it into the little rural school systems that I can't even name today. It has got to be a systematic change, fundamental to every school system. No exceptions, no excuses. And it starts here with you today. It's an awesome responsibility. And I give you every credit in the world today for being here. Because you are here today, you could be doing 1,000 other things. If your youngsters are in school, I could give you about 10 better things to be doing. I could, getting your nails done, whatever that might be. But you chose to be here today to show that your conviction that every child can learn and your commitment to making sure it happens. So I congratulate you and I thank you. And as I watched the dreams that were expressed up here on this stage, I saw that so many of you are worried about finances to make sure that your youngsters can go to college. And I want you to know that at Our Lady of the Lake University, we are all, 201, absolutely committed to making sure that your children can afford to come to our university or any university that they so strive to go to. Thank you, and God bless.
In el programa, in our program at the front, you see that the theme, el tema de esta conferencia es Keeping the Promise, Families Lead. Manteniendo la promesa, las familias lideran. Your power as families is critical to have the policy and practice that we need in our schools. El liderazgo de ustedes como familias es esencial para que las escuelas proveen la excelencia que queremos para todos nuestros hijos. Eso es importantísimo. En abril va a completar 45 años mi organización, IDRA. It'll be 45 years old. We started with one issue in 1973, equitable school finance. Empezamos con un tema, el financiamiento equitativo de todas las escuelas. Con el tiempo ahora manejamos todo, currículo, maestros, y especialmente el liderazgo de familias en educación, especially the leadership of families in education. Because you know, in parent involvement, they have you as volunteers, and that's great. They also teach you how to be better parents, and that's great. But we're concerned about your power to make sure that your neighborhood public school is the best school possible and the doors don't shut down. Lo más importante es que las escuelas en sus vecindades no las cierren. We need more money, we need support, we want good teachers, but it's you, ustedes vigilando. Hay familias del Paso ahorita que están tratando de que no cierren las escuelas en los barrios más pobres. We have people from Houston, from San Antonio. So I want you to think about that. That's one theme that's important. El otro tema que es muy importante es porque una organización cuyo fundadora está aquí con nosotros hoy, the founder of the organization, who had worked at IDRA before then, the National Latino Children's Institute started 20 years ago. And a major, major effort was to have the country realize how important El Día de los Niños was. So this year, we're having it 2 weeks before that happens. And what we want to do is to spur action in all our communities in support of our children, the children whose voices we're hearing today. So I want to ask those students to come again and join us on the stage and to be with Becky Barrera, who from the National Latino Children's Institute, who will walk us through some very important activities for the Día de los Niños.
Buenas tardes, todos. I feel short behind this very tall thing, but I promise you that I'm full of energy and full of all kinds of other things. And first thing, before we start, I want to say, happy birthday, IDRA. If it wasn't for you, I can easily say I learned from you everything I know today. Mi primer trabajo al salir de la universidad fue en el Edgewood School District. Anybody here from Edgewood? And my boss was Dr. Jose Cardenas. So 4 years later, he created Intercultural Development Research Association, maybe 5 years later. And it was natural that I would eventually find my way, and I was like the third or fourth employee at IDRA. And I can truly tell you that the 5 years I spent there gave me ground and foundation and grounded me solid in justice, fair play, what was good for our children, what's fabulous for our communities, and also what's wrong. So it was only a little while later that the entrepreneurial spirit in me forced me to step out and do something on my own. And Jose and I, over the years, continued to talk about, well, what are you doing now? And it's just amazing that I ended up creating this amazing organization called the National Latino Children's Institute. So we're here today to celebrate our 20th year as well. Y me da mucho orgullo estar aquí con ustedes para celebrar estos 20 años de apoyo para nuestros hijos. El Día de los Niños no fue idea de los Estados Unidos. El Día de los Niños celebrando jóvenes americanos. El Día de los Niños celebrating young Americans. This is a new twist of a very old holiday. Those of you who are from Mexico know El Día del Niño is the most marvelous holiday in the country because it's not religious and it's not political. It's a beautiful day for the children, just like Mother's Day and Father's Day. Well, in this country, we do not celebrate children quite the same way. In fact, when the United Nations and the UNESCO passed its Bill of Rights, the Declaration of the Bill of Rights for Children, the United States refused to sign it. You know why? Because of our tradition of incarceration and how we handle children in the courts. And so we would not be a party to that. So here we come at a conference 20 years ago, very much like this, where a national summit, where families from all over the United States came together to talk about young Latinos and what was happening in our country. Now, in 1996, our children did not have their faces in our books. You did not see them, you did not see our images in museums the way we do now. Almost everyone told us that neighborhoods were divided by, you know, the rich neighborhoods were over here, and then there was a highway, and then the barrio was over here. And we were left out of a lot of things. And our school completion rates were not great. So we brought everybody together, and we created this event, and 100 young people came from 22 states all over the United States. And at that conference, they went into their own room, and then they came out and they said, we want to be heard. You're talking about us, but you're not listening to us. We want to have a voice also. And in the course of that dialogue, they determined that they wanted us to make some promises to them. Now, I went outside and I saw these lovely milagritos, and I want to share a few of them with you because I think they're so beautiful. This first one says, I wish for safe neighborhoods. This is what parents want for their children because some of you are parents who are here, some of you are students, and some of you are teachers. This one says, I wish for my family to be happy and healthy. And it's decorated so beautifully. I love that. And this one says, my dream is to make a difference. Now that's a powerful statement. I'm just love seeing these. And here's another milagro, and this one makes me cry when I read it. it says, it's a heart. Y dice, happiness, peace, love, and health. And then it says, I love you, Suraya, with all my heart. You are my world, my life. Mom, Irene. Is that just touching? Avance. Somebody from Avance? It's beautiful. Felicidades. So, these milagritos, we have been making milagros for 20 years now all over the United States. And every year schools make them and we gather them up and we send them to Washington. And you should see them hanging on a display in the Congress and in the rotunda. And they come in, and these guys are tough guys. They're important. They think they're important. And they come over there and they start picking up these little milagritos. And this one says, I wish my dad could come home. He's in jail. And the next one says, my little brother's sick and we don't have insurance. And the next one says, I just want more time to play, but my mom works all day and then she has another job at night and I have to stay with a babysitter. And another one might say, I wish we could live in our own house. And you start seeing a pattern of what is happening in our country to our children, because the children tell you the truth. They tell you exactly what they're feeling. And so this Milagro project has just spurred so many things, and it's an important part of Dia de los Niños, because this celebration is not just a party and a festival. This celebration is an opportunity to hear our children and to have power meetings like the one we're having today, where all of you and in many, many cities are talking about what's important for our children. But more than that, we want to know what the children think. So 23 years ago, when we had that first national summit on young Latinos, they made a list of promises that they wanted us to promise, because it's one thing for us to say, we wish this and we wish that and we dream for that. But it's another thing to make a commitment and a promise. And that's why we have a process of making resolutions, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But right now, I would like all of you to stand up, and I'm going to ask you to make the same promises that we made to the young people who were at the first National Latino Children's Summit. And our young people are going to read them to us. Come forward, please. And first, we're going to ask only parents to raise their right hand, and you're going to repeat after Stephanie?
Samantha.
Samantha. After Samantha. Parents only first.
To be involved with my family.
I promise to be involved with my family.
To believe in my child. I promise to teach my children and their heritage, history, language, and moral values.
Language and moral values. It's a long one.
I promise to openly communicate with my children. I promise to spend time having fun with my children. I promise to inspire my children and tell them my goals and dreams so they will have dreams and goals too.
I promise to. Let's do it in parts. Let's do it in pieces. I promise to inspire my children.
I promise to inspire my children and tell them my goals and dreams so they will have dreams and goals too.
Now, isn't it interesting that 20 years later, the kids are asking for the same things, communication and love and promise? I just think it's so powerful. We have to do the next part. Now, this one is for everyone who's in the community, and we ask everyone to raise their hand and make these promises. Who's going to read this one? And you're Nicole?
Nicole.
This is Nicole. I promise. Start with that.
I promise to become a mentor.
I promise to become a mentor.
I promise to share my knowledge about opportunities with young Latinos.
About opportunities with young Latinos.
I promise to connect with my children and youth in my community
And youth in my community.
and ask them for ideas
And ask them for ideas
about the development
about the development,
and implementation
implementation
of programs. I promise to set up a community
I promise to set up a community
and national forums
and national forums
for youth to discuss
to discuss
issues that affect them.
issues that affect them.
I promise to teach children
I promise to teach children
and youth about the Latino culture,
and youth about the Latino culture,
history, and language.
history, and language.
I promise to provide a safe place
I promise to provide a safe place
in the community for the youth,
in the community for the youth,
to hang out in evenings
to hang out in the evenings
and employ youth in the programs,
and employ youth in the programs
and consider them in all decisions.
and consider them in all decisions. Thank you. I love you forever. Thank you. If that doesn't move you, I don't know what can, because this is what's happening all over the United States. We're asking communities to make these promises to young people and to carry them out in all the ways that they can. So El Día de los Niños is April 30th. In San Antonio, we will celebrate on April 29th at the Plaza Guadalupe. All of you are invited. You're invited to be volunteers, to be sponsors, to bring your children, to help decorate things for the parade. We want you to be involved. But we also want you to be thinking about the important things that people need to talk about and how we're going to create a better future for young people. If you want more details, we invite you to look on the website. Everyone has received information today. Download the information, the National Latino Children's Institute. Just go on the website. Become a partner. Grow this network of people who care about our young children and the future that's ahead for us. We will be passing the 20th National Resolution this month. And hopefully we will have a congressman read it, because the senators won't come. The Texas senator won't come. But maybe we can get a congressman if we have a connection from here. If we have a connection at this front table, maybe we can get a congressman who will read the Senate resolution. The resolutions are always bipartisan, and they have been led by many, many wonderful people from both political parties. So we've always been able to pass them. Unfortunately, we don't have that leadership here. So I congratulate you for caring, for being here today, for being part of this voice that creates energy and excitement for a great future. Our children are, I mean, everybody says it, but they really, truly are the future. And we have to make a road for them, and we need to listen to our children, because without that, then we may be looking at the wrong things. And all I can say is I wish you a wonderful Dia de los Niños this year. Do something powerful, make a difference, change the world, like this little milagrito says, make a difference. Don't just say it, do it. And happy birthday, IDRA, and happy birthday, National Latino Children's Institute. Thank you very much. Let me just say thank you for this lovely partnership, because we're able, the Latino Children's Institute is able then to reach all of your audiences, and because we have the web system going, you're able to reach ours. So beautiful partnership.
I want you to think of something else. When we met, we called each other, she was flaca and I was el flaco.
Yeah.
I had a full head of hair too. Then there were some you evaluated the particular sessions you were at, and then we want you to evaluate the whole conference. Were there evaluations on the tables? Okay. What color are they? There's some orange. Hay unas evaluaciones. Queremos que evalúen toda la conferencia. Remember, if you want your group picture taken, they will be in the garden. I would like all the IDRA staff to stand up, please. Todos los de IDRA, párense, por favor. Thank you all for all the hard work you've done. Thank you. Are there any of our volunteers that helped us today in the room? Would you please stand up? Volunteers, los voluntarios. Ya con esto vamos a darle clausura. We're going to close our conference. Thank you very much. Remember that you, as parents, as adults, as stakeholders, are the ones that can make a difference for our children in our schools. It's good for you to volunteer. It's good for you to learn to be a better parent. But it's really, really good that you make sure the doors stay open in your schools and that what happens inside is the best possible education our children can receive. Gracias, and you may go home and enjoy the rest of the day. The door prize winners are going to appear on the screen. And where will the prizes be? Okay, the door prizes will be out here, and the names of those that won a door prize will appear on the screen in a couple of minutes. Right. See, the Education Café team that's here, if El Paso is still here, Houston is still here, San Antonio is still